Okay. So welcome to the discussion. So today we'll be discussing question number 7 to question number 12. Okay, the second week. So first question was, it was a pretty direct question. What do you understand by international ethics? Discuss briefly various theories of international ethics. So you know the source of the question, where it was given from. So ethics of interaction amongst nations. That is what we call as international ethics. Why? So main thing is why international ethics now. So international ethics has been, important since the colonial times, and then specifically after the decolonization. Right? Because before that there were few nation states and others were their colonies. Like if we talk about 1940s or something, some period, then they were colonies. And after that, this concept of international ethics has evolved very largely, and it has become a very important part. Okay, because we'll discuss that in conclusion. So there are, if we talk about various theories, so there are three theories. One is realism, third is liberalism, and second is liberalism, and third is constructivism. So realism says states self-interest. Okay, and this is why it is realism, because this is realistic, right? Any country, whichever country, may be saying that their prime interest may be philanthropic, but first thing is country first. Like for example, for India first, right? So that is the policy, and that is quite realistic also. If we talk about liberalism, so it is like, okay, it is not only about ourselves, it is about talking about prosperity and values. So it is not only about one country, it is about liberal values throughout the nation. So that is, it comes with the globalization, right? And India's philosophy, that is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that comes from the liberal international ethics. Okay, then we talk about constructivism. It talks about state behavior. It is not like basically prosperity only, but also social identities. So it goes a bit beyond liberalism and talk about constructivism, as the name suggests, that it is not only about thinking about other countries, but also working for social identity, working about collective norms. Okay, so it goes a bit step beyond constructivism. So you have read all this within the magazine only. I'm just taking this so that I can explain you the real meaning of all these three topics. So basic. Okay, then you can conclude that why we need international ethics. So you can give some examples. So all of you wrote this part fine, this part fine. In conclusion, you are having some issues, a lot of students. So conclusion, if we are talking about ethics in current need of international ethics, so why? You can talk about anything. Like for West Asia, you can talk. If we talk about too much recent, then we can talk about Afghanistan. So Afghanistan, why Afghanistan is facing the disaster? Because of the lack of international ethics. Maybe starting from British colonial powers to Russia, then to Taliban, to USA, and now again Taliban. All of these, they have been, Afghanistan is in current condition because of the selfish motive from British till Russian, Taliban, USA, then again Taliban. All of they are facing, all of the issues are due to the selfish motive and lack of international ethics. So you can conclude the answer in that, right? Moving forward, the question number 8 was, write a short note on Make in India. How far do you think it has been able to make India a manufacturing hub? So in this question also, there was some issue regarding people did not write any data, anything like that. Okay, so try to find some data regarding the question. Wants you to write how far do you think it has been able to make India a manufacturing hub. Okay, so you can introduce with Make in India government's flagship policy, why to make India a manufacturing hub. Okay, then the objectives of Make in India, you can write some, at least like data like 16 to 18% in the manufacturing sector, India's GDP, to bringing it up to 25%. And basically it was making India manufacturing hub and technology transfer. Okay, so we will be providing the grounds, and the companies can come into India and they can invest in India and they can make in India. It is not only about made in India, it is also about inviting foreign companies and to make in India, and also to stop Indian companies to go overseas. Okay, then we can talk about the FDI. That was the major factor under the this make in India. Okay, so FDI has increased. Initially it has increased a lot, then also it has increased, steadily increasing, but the speed of increase in FDI has reduced, and specifically in current COVID times. Okay, then the manufacturing sector, it also increased, it got a little boost. Then after 2017-18, the manufacturing sector, role of manufacturing sector in GDP percentage has been decreasing steadily, right? And then service sector, service sector is going up constantly. Also the FDI in service sector has also been increasing. So in this factor, it is good going on. But our major thing was the manufacturing hub, making India manufacturing hub. So we are not performing that good in that. And the major reason is that there is no technology transfer. So basically what was the aim was that first we will call the companies, they will make in India, and after some time they will go for technology transfer, so that Indian companies can also make it. So that will make India a manufacturing hub, basically the indigenous companies. And it did not happen. It did not happen. Very less, to a very less extent it happened. Okay. So now what? Now we need to give some suggestions. Okay. So what can be the suggestions? Right. In the conclusion part, we need to suggest, but try to write the conclusion part in paragraphs. Okay. Try not to write in points. Try to write that, okay, in one sentence or two sentences, that okay, that although the Make in India has been a good step, the objectives were good, but due to some issues regarding the FDI or the technology transfer, it has not been performing well. For this, the government has been proceeding toward ease of doing business, bought GST for unification of tax norms, and also looking towards the direct tax code and double taxation avoidance agreement also revisiting, so that it can be useful for India to become a manufacturing hub. So you can write it in a paragraph form rather than writing it in a point form. So conclusion and introduction, try to write in some paragraph. Fine. Moving on to the question number 9. Write a note on issues faced by people while adopting. Sorry. Someone has joined. I don't know. Okay. Write a note on issues faced by people while adopting a child in India. What are measures taken to ease of adoption? Okay. So in the introduction, why adoption and why now? You can write both the terms. Okay. Basically, most of you have introduced due to this COVID, orphans due to COVID, and also Ministry of Women and Child Development. But also you can look at a larger picture, that why adoption is required in India, right? So a lot of people abandon their child. Because a lot of children they are also get parentless due to some accidents or something, right? Second would be why from the parent side. One would be from the children side, then from the parent side, infertility, okay. Late marriages sometimes, right? And late marriages and associated issues. Sometimes people even they don't want to conceive due to career and options, and so they would go for adoption. So you can write in that context also regarding the why adoption. Then what are the issues faced? Almost everyone wrote were good. Try to write like 4 issues. Okay. So first issue, you can talk about the legal issues. Then you can talk about social issues, right? Then third is after adoption. Okay. So legal issues are that there are some legal issues. One would be that there are differential adoption rules, because the third gender cannot adopt. Only male parent cannot adopt a girl child. Second is the legal issues, the waiting is long, lot of paperwork and bureaucratic hurdles are there. And social issue is, one is stigma. Second is sometimes, not sometimes, the parents may not want to adopt differently able children, right? Third social issue, if we talk about that, there is sometimes the parents would like to know the caste background or all, that is still prevalent in India. So that is also again an issue. Then after adoption, there are issues like child trafficking. Okay. Then second issue would be sometimes the child is being returned by the parents, adopted child. So this gives a lot of stress to the child in one form or the other. So these are few issues you can write according to your priorities. I have listed like 8-9 issues. You can write 4, 5, 6 issues. That's fine. Then what are the steps taken? So steps taken is CARA. We can talk about then carings, right? Then recent Juvenile Justice Act 2015, ease of adoption, right? So these are few things, and then also so these are few things. Then we need to conclude with some way forward, because whatever these are, right, CARA, carings, recent judgment, these are all to avoid the legal hurdles, right? So we need to conclude with how to take care of these social hurdles, stigmatization and everything. So it is like for via awareness generation. How awareness generation? Through the need, by destigmatizing this thing, that if you need a child, definitely why to adopt, you need to adopt, why to go anywhere else. Within our country there are a lot of children who needs parents, right, who need parents. So you can sensitize people. Rather than awareness generation, we can talk about sensitization through a lot of ways, through some role modeling, okay, or through government ads, bringing, like roping in people like Amitabh Bachchan or some who can, because there is a social impact of all the celebrities. There is a huge social impact. That is what advertisement take care of, right? That is how advertisements gets benefit. So this is what we can talk about, that by roping in or by using some brand ambassadors like famous personality. You can even name or you may not name. That's your choice. You can name. There is no issue in naming for famous personalities, so that they can come over television or any advertisement, and they can ask people that there is no harm in adopting. There is nothing called casteism or whatever is the lineage of the child that does not affect. It is the parenting, it is the upbringing of child that what matters, right? So these things you can talk about in your conclusion, right? So any question till now? Anyone? Okay. So moving forward, what are the key points of FRBM Act? State its relevance in controlling India's fiscal deficit. So FRBM Act, it came in 2003. So you can define Fiscal Responsibility and Budgetary Management Act 2003 for controlling the fiscal deficit and bringing it down to 3% of the GDP. Okay, so that you can define it. And then the key points were 3% of the GDP for fiscal deficit, revenue deficit to 0%. Okay, then government borrowing to be reduced. Okay, I'll talk about it after. Why are you not audible? Okay. Okay, bringing down the revenue deficit and increasing the tax to GDP ratio. Okay. Okay, I don't. Okay, I'll unmute. Okay, after this question, I'll unmute. So 3%. So these were the key points. Okay, then also medium term and medium term fiscal policy that was to be presented if there was a some deviation from the fiscal deficit. Then how it is relevant? So relevance is quite high. Relevance of FRBM, because India is a country with high fiscal deficit. Due to high fiscal deficit, high borrowings leading to higher interest payment and lesser funds for development. So for any government or any country to survive, they need what? Finances. And if due to uncontrolled expenses, if there is higher borrowings, higher fiscal deficit, then that may not be very good for country's development. So FRBM puts a check on government expenditure, so that government do not spend too much, and if it is spending, then it is answerable. And when government is answerable, they will be cautiously spending and they will be controlling down the fiscal deficit. And by controlling down the fiscal deficit and reducing the revenue deficit, lower interest we have to pay, and we will have more funds for development. So this is the example of perfect checks and balances. Right. Still, then you can also talk about some things like within the relevance also, but it has not been working too much because a lot of things happened. For example, 2009 subprime crisis, right? And then the change in government, and then demonetization, and then the GST. All these steps were good, but they has affected the FRBM Act, adversely. And now COVID. And you can conclude with the recent NK Session Committee recommendation of bringing down the fiscal deficit gradually till 2023 also. So you can talk about that in your conclusion, right? Yeah, Aditya, I guess you are unmuted now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll talk about your question after all the questions, okay? After two more questions we have then. Okay. Next is discuss the relevance of LPG reforms in India's growth. Okay. So this was again one easy question. Discuss for introduction. You need to discuss the LPG reforms background, because in late 1980s, okay, India was facing a debt crisis. A lot of issues were faced, and also we were not able to implement our 5-year plans properly. So under the, we cannot say it was pressure or whatever, under the guidelines of IMF, because we need to borrow, and while borrowing above a certain limit, we need to follow some guidance. So we opened up our economy, and this opening of our economy from a closed economy to mixed one, we adopted the reforms which are called as LPG reforms, that is liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And then you can discuss the meaning of all these: what is liberalization, what is privatization, and what is globalization. Then relevance is far-fetched. Okay, you cannot be writing all the relevance within one part of the question. So you can write like 5 to 6 points in the relevance, starting from the banking sector. Okay, so private entry was allowed in banking sector, and now the banking sector, the private sector in the banking has been one, largest part. So the around 50% of the banking in India is taken care of by the private banks. Okay, then so privatization, and always one more point on privatization you can look into, right? So one more step of privatization, we can talk about the PSUs. Okay, so liberalization, we can talk about the PSUs like Maharatna and Navratna companies, right, given autonomy. So that can go for liberalization part. And then globalization, we opened up FDI, and recently we have opened almost all the sectors for FDI. While we talk about liberalization, then one more point was licenses. So now only few sectors require licenses, and all the license raj has been omitted. So these 4 or 5 points you can talk about in this relevance. So from 1991 till 2021, how these reform has helped India to grow as 5th largest economy now. So in 1991 till now, India has come a lot forward, and become the fifth highest economy in the world, fifth largest economy in the world, and it has come from developing economy to an emerging economy and become an active member of BRICS. Okay, so like this, you can conclude your answer with from 1991 till 2020. Okay. The last question: India has been constantly facing budgetary deficit. Give reasons and write measures taken by the government to control it. So in this question, most of you did not write measures taken by the government. You wrote suggestions. So the question you need to understand. So in this question, this was the first time I faced this issue, and I guess all the students, most of the students wrote, rather than writing measures taken by the government, they wrote their own suggestions. So question wants you to write measures taken. You can suggest in the way forward part, okay, but you need not to suggest here. You need to write the measures taken by the government. So what is budgetary deficit? You can define obviously in a basic terms. You need to define. You need not to go too technical, but in the basic terms, it is if revenue is less than expenditure, then it is called as budgetary deficit. That is what basically it is. And what are the reasons for the budgetary deficit? One major reason in India, the budgetary deficit is, time and cost overrun. So time and cost overrun is one of the most important reason. That means what is it means? So whatever we estimate, right, it is estimated for like 1 year. So for one X, for example, there is X project, X road project, and the government or the official would say that okay, we will complete it within 1 year, and the amount would be Y crores or something, right? But what happens is, due to red tapeism, due to a lot of other issues, right? So a lot of other issues, what happens is this project gets delayed. This is called time overrun, and 1 year to 2 year, for example, land acquisition and anything, it get into litigation stage, court and everything. And this Y turns to 5Y, 10Y even. So this is one of the reasons that we are having very high budgeted deficit. So any project that has been, taken for like 1 crore, it runs up to 5 to 10 crore. So that is one of the major reasons. Then second major reason would be the corruption. First is red tapeism, second would be the corruption, third would be the lack of expertise, right? Because the ministers are not experts, so they would be, sometimes envisioning some projects which are not feasible financially, not viable financially. Then environmental concerns, and then vote bank politics. Because for vote bank politics also, some of the schemes are being announced. You know that, right? And due to these schemes also, the budgetary deficit increases. Now, what are the measures taken by the government? So first measure was already asked in the question. FRBM Act is one of the main measures taken by the government to reduce the fiscal deficit. Second would be the GST, right, to increase the revenue. Third would be, FRBM, then GST, okay, goods and service tax, and then various schemes like Samvad Se Vivad, right? So where the government is trying to get as much as tax as possible, and by giving some tax rebates and everything. Okay. Then government is calling in for FDI, right? And so growth, and with the growth, income, revenue, and also government is focusing on non-tax revenue, and government is trying to bring the direct tax code. It has been trying to bring direct tax code to increase the direct tax revenue, and then the reforms in the corporate tax, also has increased the government revenue. So these are where the government is we are talking about the budgetary measures, okay, for increasing the revenue. And if we talk about decreasing the cost, so IBC is one of the insolvency and bankruptcy code where banks can get their assets back, and so government may not have to fund them. Then again, government is sometimes looking into privatization of PSUs, specifically the loss-making PSUs. So disinvestment. So these are few measures taken by the government. And then further you can suggest with some way forward that even whatever the government is doing, still there is the time and cost overrun is high. So to reduce the litigation, we can talk about, expert panels for infrastructure development. Okay. Then to avoid vote bank politics. So what can be done? The ministers or can be held responsible, right? So these are few measures that you can write in the conclusion part. Okay. So this was all about like today's discussion. Okay. Now any question, anyone, if you have, you can ask. Like Aditya was asking. Yeah, Aditya, what was your question?
Sir, starting from the 7th question, international ethics.
Just a second, Aditya. Vaishnavi, no issues. I'll just put this recording, okay, over YouTube, and I'll share the link by 2 tonight only. So, and if you have any other question, you can ask, or you can also message me regarding the same. Okay. Yeah. And tell me, Aditya.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Starting from the question number 7, international ethics. Sir, in this question, the answer is quite simple and quite general. I don't find any data and facts from this question.
Yeah. Okay.
So, is it required to put some data and facts in every question, like in the 8th question, Make in India?
It is like for international ethics we are talking about. So you can conclusion part or wherever you are writing, right? So you can connect it with some current issues, right? It is not about giving data or something, but you have current context, right? You have current context. You can introduce with the current context, and you can conclude with the current context. So where you don't have data or anything, if you use current affairs, right? For example, as I gave you the example of Afghanistan, right? So if you use that, then it will be very easy for you to understand and very easy for you to write more, introductions and conclusion. What happens is when you are writing like one question a day, right? So even if your introduction and conclusion are monotonous, right? Doesn't matter. I will be evaluating one question a day or 2 questions a day. Yours, then if it is the similar lines also, then it won't matter. But while writing 20 answers, and if it is monotonous, right? So it will matter for the exam. So this is where you can improve your introduction and conclusion, where you don't have it in data. Okay. Yeah. Now next, what were you asking?
Yes, sir. In the Make in India question, I find difficult to put data in the question. I didn't understand the demand of the question. Like I had to write a short note on Make in India, and I had written a lot of stuff on Make in India, like targets, objectives, and pillars. And I think this is not the required demand of the question.
Not required, right? When we talk about short notes, so you can basically short notes, and the next question was the performance, right? So
yes, sir.
Whenever one question is not very clear, first part of the answer is not very clear, okay? So what you do is you look into the second part. The second part was performance, right? And how we assess any performance. We assess any performance with respect to the objectives of that scheme, right? If I ask you what is the performance of MG Narega or whatever, so what you do is you need to look into what we wanted, right? What was the intention and what is the output, right? Whenever you study, I would ask you anything regarding your study. So how we answer it? What was our intention? Our intention was to like remember or learn chapter 1. And what should be our output? We should know what is in chapter 1. That's it, right? That is what we are talking about, right? Getting my point? So when you are when we are looking into the performance or output of anything, so we need to look at what we wanted at the first place, and then only we can go for the output part. So if we are asking the second part performance, then you need to write the objectives and you can answer the performance part. Okay. Yeah. Next, any other question?
Yes, sir. While writing the measures for the child adoption in India, we have written most of the answers like our suggestions and measures, rather than providing the government suggestion and measures. Uh, so,
You have
like
provided
they are,
government only. You have provided like Kara Kerings you have written, I guess, right?
yes, sir. Like there are two parts in the question. First part is note on issue while adopting a child in India, and second part is measures taken for age of child adoption. While writing this answer, I put myself in the strain to complete this answer in limited time period and limited word. Like I have to complete this answer in 10 minutes. So most of the time I just write, and in the flow I have listed those points which is not required and the word limit breaches. So the second portion of the answer is not the way I provided, and I don't put the actually the data and the facts which is required in which is demand for the question. So how to uh, reduce time and manage all the data, facts, and all the important relevant point in the questions.
Don't worry about time right now, as I've been telling you. Okay, don't worry about time right now. Later you've been writing, like you have written on 10, 12 questions. Time will get through. Don't worry about it. You will be able to write in the time. First, you need to think a lot right now, right? The once your flow will improve, so you will definitely increase. Okay, it will improve. Don't worry about that. Okay, just a second. Huh? Sonali is asking, ethics syllabus is going on. No, Sonali, the ethics syllabus is not going on. The ethics question was from the current affairs part. Okay, I have been suggesting the magazine for the current affairs, and the question was from the current affairs part. So its syllabus is not going on. And regarding the speed, I guess you are talking about the writing speed, right? So don't worry about the speed, even if you are able to complete the answer within 15 minutes also. Don't worry about it right now. Okay. Yeah, Aditya, continue. So
Yes,
if you are talking about speed, don't worry about speed. It will improve. Trust me. Okay. And on that portion, you need not to worry much. It will definitely improve. I guess it has been improved a little already, right? If in I was talking to Vaishnavi, I guess, and now that earlier she used to say that it took 16, 17, 18 minutes. Now it takes her 15 minutes. Okay. So it has been reduced. If you look into it consciously, then you will find that it has been reduced a little, not too much, but it will reduce further. Don't worry about it. Okay, we have written how many? Around 15 questions now. We will be writing 150 questions, right? So definitely it will reduce. Don't worry. Okay, next.
yes, sir. As you have provided a lot of different different section of the questions like ethics, in this
Basically,
way
GS3,
agriculture,
few from ethics, few from polity, but
GS3,
basically GS3. Yeah.
different GS paper. So, sir, while writing about the answer, some section of the questions are indulge in this question, like while
Overlapping.
writing about the,
We are talking about overlapping, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So
While
yeah, that
while
is.
writing
Yeah. Sorry.
while writing about the question number 12, budgetary deficit, and some measures taken by the government to control it, and then the polity section overlapping the economic section. So I had an issue to how to balance the answer and how.
We will have a proper session on that also. Okay. In October. Okay. I will take care of your prelims. Okay. So don't worry about that. So we will be having it around 15th or 17th of October. Okay. A full session.
Okay, sir.
How to differentiate while writing answer on CS 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Because
Okay,
the
sir.
topics are overlapping. For example, in GS1 there is society. It is in GS2 also, and in GS3 also, in one form or the other, right? So how to write the answer according to the demand of the paper, not only about the question. You need to take care, because in GS1 Indian society is in the topic, in GS2 polity is in topic. So if in GS2, if I am asking a question regarding Indian society, then how to make it a GS2 type of answer, how to write